Sarah Collins disappeared on the coldest morning of the year, leaving nothing behind except a half-unzipped suitcase and the faint smell of winter clinging to her sheets. The nurses at Ashwood Senior Care found her room at 6:12 a.m., the window cracked open just enough for snow to drift across the floor like a trail she had meant someone to follow. Her slippers were neatly tucked under the bed. Her coat, heavy, wool, burgundy, was still hanging in the closet, and the security camera caught only a single frame of her silhouette slipping around the far corner of the hallway, moving with a speed no one believed a 68-year-old woman still possessed. They assumed she was confused. They assumed she wandered off. They assumed what people always assume about old women. She must not know what she's doing. But Sarah had been planning her disappearance for months. At 5:47 a.m., before the sun broke over the frostbitten parking lot, she sat on the edge of her bed and listened to the old building groan with the weight of winter. Every sound, pipes clanking, wheels of the breakfast cart squeaking, tightened the knot of fear in her chest. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against her thighs. Not from age, not from illness, from the simple terror of choosing freedom. "Just stand up," she whispered to herself. "Just stand up and walk." Her legs obeyed. The room felt smaller than usual, as if shrinking around the version of herself she was leaving behind. She reached for the drawer where she kept the things her children believed she no longer remembered. Letters she had never sent, photographs she had hidden, the scrap of paper with the phone number Ethan told her to memorize, just in case. She hesitated with the number between her fingers. Would he really come? Would he still want to help her? Would anyone believe she wasn't losing her mind? A door slammed somewhere down the hall. Sarah flinched. Her time was up. The night before, her daughter Melissa had visited, her perfume still lingering faintly in the curtains, sharp and expensive, like someone trying to hide the scent of guilt beneath layers of citrus and steel. "You're not safe living on your own anymore," Melissa said as she signed the paperwork the nurse placed in front of her. "You don't have to pretend, Mom. We know your memory's slipping." Sarah wanted to scream, not because the accusation hurt. She had prepared for that, but because of how deeply her children needed it to be true. If she was losing her mind, then they didn't have to face the truth. They were the ones who had chosen to put her here. They were the ones who needed her locked away. They were the ones terrified of what she might finally say if she stayed free long enough to gather the courage. Melissa pressed a gentle, clinical kiss to her forehead. "We'll finalize the competency hearing next month. It's for the best." For the best. Sarah tasted the words like blood. Derek had visited the week before, only because he needed money. He spoke softly, kindly, even held her hands while his eyes darted toward her purse. He lied with the same voice he had used as a child. They were both their father's children, shaped by the house they grew up in, sharpened by the silence she allowed. Her silence, her cowardice, her punishment. But this morning, this bitter, breath-stealing morning, she would not be silent anymore. At 5:58 a.m., she stepped into the hallway, her heart pounding so loudly she feared it might set off the alarms before she reached the door. She ignored the nurse's station, where the night shift sat dozing, murmuring into their phones. Snow filtered down through the skylight, dusting the floor in pale blue light. Every step felt like stolen time. At the intersection near the east wing, she paused beneath the security camera. She kept her head bowed, her hair loose around her face. She counted the seconds like Ethan had told her. 3 seconds of blind spot, he whispered months ago when he still worked here, when he wheeled her to the courtyard like she was someone worth talking to. "You step through at an angle. Don't look up. Don't stop." She stepped. Her shadow glided across the wall and vanished just as the camera hummed back to life. The back exit loomed ahead, coated in frost. She pushed the door with both hands. It groaned open, and the first breath of icy wind hit her like a slap. Her lungs burned. Her eyes watered. But her legs kept moving. A car waited at the far end of the service road, engine running, lights off. Ethan stood outside, leaning against the driver's door, his breath visible in the frigid air. His hair was damp from the snow. His jacket was too thin for weather like this. He looked younger than she remembered, and more frightened. "You came," she whispered. He nodded, jaw clenched. "I said I would." "Are you sure?" Her voice shook. "If you change your mind, this is the moment." Ethan opened the passenger door. "Get in, Sarah." The wind howled around them. The sky darkened as if the storm itself were holding its breath. Sarah gripped the doorframe, staring back at the life she was abandoning. The building loomed gray and massive behind her, an institution built to swallow old women whole. She inhaled one long, trembling breath. Then she stepped inside the car. Ethan slammed the door and pulled away from the curb before she had time to reconsider. For the first time in 40 years, Sarah didn't feel trapped. For the first time in 40 years, someone was helping her escape. But freedom, she knew, was never without consequence. And behind them, in the empty room she left behind, a nurse's pager began to shriek. Ethan didn't speak for the first 10 miles. The car hummed through the snow-choked highway, tires cutting thin grooves across the frozen asphalt. The world outside was a blur of white and steel, sun still hidden behind clouds heavy with more storm. Inside the car, the heat barely worked, leaving the windshield fogged at the edges, as if the night were trying to claw its way back in. Sarah kept her hands folded tightly in her lap. If she let go, she wasn't sure whether she would shake or scream. "Are they going to follow us?" Ethan finally asked, his voice low, careful. "They will," Sarah replied, "but not yet. They don't wake up this early." "That's good, right?" She didn't answer. She wasn't sure. For a long moment, the only sound was the rattle of the heater fighting for life. Sarah looked at Ethan, really looked at him, for the first time since she stepped into the car. He had dark circles under his eyes. His jaw tightened each time he blinked, like he was rehearsing a confession he couldn't bring himself to say. He was too young to carry that kind of weight, too young to be the one helping an old woman escape her own children. "Ethan," she said softly, "if you're afraid, this is the moment to turn around." He shook his head, gripping the wheel harder. "Afraid? Yeah, of course. But I'm not turning around." "Why not?" He hesitated, just long enough for the silence to sharpen. "Because you deserve to breathe," he said finally. "Because someone should have helped you a long time ago." It wasn't the answer she expected. It wasn't even the answer she wanted. But it was the first time in years someone spoke to her without judgment. 20 minutes later, the car pulled into an abandoned gas station, a place worn down by decades of sun, snow, and broken promises. Ethan parked behind the building, out of sight from the road. He turned off the engine. "Okay," he exhaled. "We're safe for a bit." Safe. A word Sarah hadn't felt in half her lifetime. She rubbed her aching fingers. The cold had crept deep into her bones. Ethan noticed and rushed to the trunk, returning with a blanket, thin, old, mismatched patterns, but warm when he wrapped it around her shoulders. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't have to thank me," he muttered, cheeks flushing. Just stay warm." Sarah watched him pace, hands shoved into the pockets of his jeans. He looked like a boy pretending to be a man. Yet there was something in his eyes, something old, bruised, familiar. "Ethan," she said gently, "what are you running from?" He froze. The question hung in the air like a blade between them. "I'm not." He stopped, closed his eyes, tried again. "I'm not running." "You keep looking at the mirrors," she replied. "You keep checking your phone for notifications, and you haven't told me why you lost your job at the care center." A hollow laugh escaped him. "You don't miss anything, do you?" "Melissa says I'm losing my mind, but I'm not losing my eyes." Ethan leaned against the wall of the gas station, snowflakes settling on his hair. "I didn't lose my job," he said finally. "I quit before they could fire me." "For what?" He hesitated. Shame flickered across his face. "I got into a fight with one of the nurses. He said something disgusting about you." Sarah blinked. "About me?" "Yeah." His jaw clenched. "He said old women were easy to convince, easy to push around, easy to forget. And I?" He swallowed hard. "I lost it." Sarah pressed a hand to her chest. Not from fear. This time from something dangerously close to warmth. "No one's ever defended me like that," she murmured. "That's the problem," Ethan replied. "Someone should have." Before she could answer, his phone buzzed. The sound split the moment like a crack of thunder. Ethan's face drained as he read the screen. "What is it?" Sarah asked. He turned the phone for her to see. A photo of her room at the care center, her empty bed, the open window, a message beneath it. "Where is she?" Melissa's number. Sarah's pulse hammered. "They know." "Yeah," Ethan whispered. "They know you're gone." He grabbed the keys, started the engine again, and pulled onto the road without hesitation. Ethan, Sarah said, clutching her blanket, where are we going? He didn't answer at first. Then, with a breath that sounded like it cost him everything, to the only place they won't look. But before we get there, there's something you need to know. Your daughter, Melissa, she came to see me before I got fired. Sarah stiffened. Why? To ask what you told me about your husband's death. The world tilted. A rush of heat shot through her chest. She said, Ethan continued, voice trembling, that if you ever talk, everything falls apart. For all of them. Sarah stared straight ahead as the storm swallowed the sky. Her children weren't chasing her out of fear for her safety. They were chasing her because they were terrified of the truth. And for the first time, Sarah wondered, not whether she could trust Ethan, but whether she could trust herself with what she knew. Ethan didn't speak for the first 10 miles. The car hummed through the snow-choked highway, tires cutting thin grooves across the frozen asphalt. The world outside was a blur of white and steel, sun still hidden behind clouds heavy with more storm. Inside the car, the heat barely worked, leaving the windshield fogged at the edges, as if the night were trying to claw its way back in. Sarah kept her hands folded tightly in her lap. If she let go, she wasn't sure whether she would shake or scream. Are they going to follow us? Ethan finally asked, his voice low, careful. They will, Sarah replied, but not yet. They don't wake up this early. That's good, right? She didn't answer. She wasn't sure. For a long moment, the only sound was the rattle of the heater fighting for life. Sarah looked at Ethan, really looked at him, for the first time since she stepped into the car. He had dark circles under his eyes. His jaw tightened each time he blinked, like he was rehearsing a confession he couldn't bring himself to say. He was too young to carry that kind of weight, too young to be the one helping an old woman escape her own children. Ethan, she said softly, if you're afraid, this is the moment to turn around. He shook his head, gripping the wheel harder. Afraid? Yeah. Of course, but I'm not turning around. Why not? He hesitated, just long enough for the silence to sharpen. Because you deserve to breathe, he said finally. Because someone should have helped you a long time ago. It wasn't the answer she expected. It wasn't even the answer she wanted. But it was the first time in years someone spoke to her without judgment. 20 minutes later, the car pulled into an abandoned gas station, a place worn down by decades of sun, snow, and broken promises. Ethan parked behind the building, out of sight from the road. He turned off the engine. Okay, he exhaled. We're safe for a bit. Safe. A word Sarah hadn't felt in half her lifetime. She rubbed her aching fingers. The cold had crept deep into her bones. Ethan noticed and rushed to the trunk, returning with a blanket, thin, old, mismatched patterns, but warm when he wrapped it around her shoulders. Thank you, she whispered. You don't have to thank me, he muttered, cheeks flushing. Just stay warm. Sarah watched him pace, hands shoved into the pockets of his jeans. He looked like a boy pretending to be a man. Yet there was something in his eyes, something old, bruised, familiar. Ethan, she said gently, what are you running from? He froze. The question hung in the air like a blade between them. I'm not. He stopped. Closed his eyes, tried again. I'm not running. You keep looking at the mirrors, she replied. You keep checking your phone for notifications. And you haven't told me why you lost your job at the care center. A hollow laugh escaped him. You don't miss anything, do you? Melissa says I'm losing my mind, but I'm not losing my eyes. Ethan leaned against the wall of the gas station, snowflakes settling on his hair. I didn't lose my job, he said finally. I quit before they could fire me. For what? He hesitated. Shame flickered across his face. I got into a fight with one of the nurses. He said something disgusting. About you. Sarah blinked. About me? Yeah, his jaw clenched. He said old women were easy to convince, easy to push around, easy to forget. And he swallowed hard. I lost it. Sarah pressed a hand to her chest. Not from fear, this time from something dangerously close to warmth. No one's ever defended me like that, she murmured. That's the problem, Ethan replied. Someone should have. Before she could answer, his phone buzzed. The sound split the moment like a crack of thunder. Ethan's face drained as he read the screen. What is it? Sarah asked. He turned the phone for her to see, a photo of her room at the care center, her empty bed, the open window, a message beneath it. Where is she? Melissa's number. Sarah's pulse hammered. They know. Yeah, Ethan whispered. They know you're gone. He grabbed the keys, started the engine again, and pulled onto the road without hesitation. "Ethan," Sarah said, clutching her blanket, "where are we going?" He didn't answer at first. Then, with a breath that sounded like it cost him everything, "To the only place they won't look. But before we get there, there's something you need to know. Your daughter, Melissa, she came to see me before I got fired." Sarah stiffened. "Why?" "To ask what you told me about your husband's death." The world tilted. A rush of heat shot through her chest. "She said," Ethan continued, voice trembling, "that if you ever talk, everything falls apart. For all of them." Sarah stared straight ahead as the storm swallowed the sky. Her children weren't chasing her out of fear for her safety. They were chasing her because they were terrified of the truth. And for the first time, Sarah wondered, not whether she could trust Ethan, but whether she could trust herself with what she knew. Melissa's silhouette appeared in the frosted window like a ghost Sarah had spent decades trying and failing to outrun. "Mom," she called again, her voice slicing through the storm, controlled but trembling beneath the surface. "Open the door. I know you're in there." Sarah pressed her back against the wall, her breath sharp and uneven. Ethan stepped in front of her, shielding her with his body as if he could absorb the danger by sheer will. "How did she find us?" he whispered. "She always finds me," Sarah murmured. "It's her inheritance from Thomas. He taught her how to hunt what she fears." Another knock, this time just one, slow and deliberate. A warning. "Mom," Melissa said, "I'm not leaving. You open the door or I force my way in." Ethan cursed under his breath, then moved toward the window, keeping low. Snow drifted past in thick sheets, revealing just enough of Melissa's figure to see her hands shoved deep in her coat pockets. She was alone, or at least she wanted them to think she was. "She won't leave," Sarah whispered. "She's too much like him." "You mean Thomas?" Ethan asked. Sarah nodded, "and that's what terrifies me most." Ethan's chest rose and fell sharply. "Okay, stay behind me." Then, louder, "Melissa, step back from the door." A tense beat. Then Melissa's voice, cool and cutting. "Ethan, I thought I recognized the car. Open the door before this gets worse for you." Sarah felt her legs weaken. "She knows your name." "Of course she knows my name," Ethan muttered. "Your daughter asks a lot of questions when she thinks someone's stealing her inheritance." "That's not what this is," Melissa snapped from the other side. "This is about my mother's safety." Sarah flinched. That was the exact tone Thomas used when he wanted to blame her for his violence. Ethan tightened his jaw and cracked the door open just enough to stand in the frame. Snow blasted inward, coating the floor in a thin sheet of white. Melissa didn't blink. Her eyes flicked over him, sharp as a scalpel. "Move?" she said. "No," Ethan replied. That one syllable hit like a slap. Melissa laughed, not with humor, but disbelief, indignation, something darker beneath. "You think I'm scared of you? A jobless kid with a record and no degree?" Ethan stiffened. Sarah wanted to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. "This isn't about me," Melissa continued. "It's about my mother. She is not well, and I will not let you manipulate her." "Manipulate?" Ethan's voice cracked around the word. "She wandered out of a care facility without shoes." "She's wearing shoes now," Ethan shot back. "She has dementia." "No, she doesn't. She is vulnerable. She deserves freedom." The storm howled louder, as if the world itself leaned in to hear whose truth would win. Melissa's gaze shifted, cold, assessing, toward the dim interior of the farmhouse. "Mom?" she called again. "If you can hear me, please come out. I'm not here to fight." Sarah stepped forward without meaning to, drawn by the pleading edge in her daughter's voice. A mother knows when her child is lying, and when her child is breaking. Melissa was breaking. "Ethan," Sarah whispered, touching his arm. "Let me talk to her." Ethan shook his head fiercely. "Sarah, she'll drag you back the second she gets her hands on you." "Then she'll have to get through me," Melissa said. Pushing the door wider and stepping inside, the wind slammed it shut behind her. Snowflakes melted instantly on her cheeks. Her eyes locked on her mother, wide, shimmering, furious, terrified, all at once. "Oh God," Melissa whispered, "you really are here." "Where else would I be?" Sarah asked softly. Melissa's expression twisted. "You should be somewhere safe, somewhere supervised." "I am safe." "With him?" She spat the word like poison. Ethan took a step forward. "I'm not the threat here." "No?" Melissa snapped. "Because to me, the threat is the 25-year-old drifter who convinced my mother to run away in the middle of winter." "Melissa," Sarah said gently. I left because you tried to take my freedom. You and Derek were planning. We were planning to protect you, Melissa cut in. By declaring me incompetent? By taking my home, my accounts, my choices? Melissa flinched, jaw tightening. You don't understand how vulnerable you are. No, Sarah said, feeling something fierce ignite in her chest. I just understand how afraid you are. Melissa froze. The room fell silent, except for the storm pounding against the walls. Afraid? She repeated, voice cracking. Afraid of what, Mom? Sarah stepped closer, her breath visible between them. Afraid of what I might remember. Melissa paled. A tremor flickered through her. That's not, she began. It is, Sarah said. You're terrified I'll remember the night your father died. Terrified I'll tell the truth. Melissa's throat worked as she swallowed. Ethan's eyes widened. Outside, thunder rumbled. Sarah's next words came out in a whisper so sharp it cut the air. I'm not the only one in this family who's been lying. Melissa staggered back a step, like the truth had struck her physically. Don't, she whispered. Don't say it. I have to. Mom. Melissa's voice broke. Please. If you tell him, if you tell anyone, our family is finished. Sarah blinked slowly. Our family has been finished for years. Melissa covered her face with both hands, shaking, not with cold, but with something closer to collapse. Nobody meant to hurt anyone, she whispered. That night, it just happened. Ethan inhaled sharply. What night? Sarah's answer was soft, devastating. The night Thomas fell down the stairs. Melissa's hands dropped. Her eyes glistened like a child caught in the act. And for the first time, Sarah saw not a ruthless adult, but the broken little girl she had abandoned to survive a monster. I didn't push him, Melissa whispered. But I didn't stop him from falling either. The world seemed to stop breathing. Ethan stared between them, stunned. Sarah felt her knees weaken beneath the crushing weight of the truth finally clawing its way into the open. And Melissa, strong, polished, brilliant Melissa, began to cry. You can hate me, she whispered, but don't let him use you. Don't let him make everything worse than it already is. He isn't using me, Sarah said quietly. Then what are you doing with him? Melissa demanded. Sarah hesitated, and in that hesitation, Melissa saw everything. Oh my God, she breathed. You love him. The lantern flickered, the storm screamed, Ethan froze, and Sarah Collins, 68, widowed, hunted, exhausted, finally answered the question she had been avoiding even from herself. I don't know what I feel, she whispered. But whatever it is, it's the first thing that's been mine in decades. Melissa's expression shattered. You're choosing him over us. I'm choosing myself, Sarah replied. Outside, a sudden beam of light swept across the wall. Headlights. Another car. Someone else had found them. Melissa's voice cracked in terror. Mom, Derek followed me. The door rattled. A man's voice shouted through the storm. Open up! I know she's in there! Sarah's blood turned to ice. Derek was here. And he was not alone. Derek's fist hit the door so hard the hinges rattled, dust shaking loose from the ceiling like the house itself was terrified of him. Open the damn door, he shouted. I know she's in there, Melissa. You think you can outrun me? Another blow. Then another, louder, sharper, edged with the kind of desperation that didn't come from love, but from a man with nothing left to lose. Sarah staggered backward, pressing a hand to her chest. He's drunk, she whispered. He only sounds like that when he's drunk. Ethan moved instantly, stepping between her and the door. He's not getting in here. Melissa wiped at her face quickly, trying to pull herself back together, but her hands were trembling too violently. You don't know Derek when he's like this, she warned. He'll break down the door. And if he sees Ethan... The pounding stopped. Silence. A silence too sudden, too heavy to be harmless. Melissa's breath hitched. Don't let your guard down, she murmured. Ethan reached for the lantern, lowering its flame until the room dimmed into a murky amber gloom. Stay behind me, he said. Sarah nodded, though fear had rooted her feet to the floor. Then Derek's voice came, low, slurred, venomous. Mom, I just want to talk. A lie. A familiar one. It was the same tone Thomas once used before unleashing something far darker. Sarah's skin crawled, but Melissa stiffened, anger overtaking fear. Save it, she snapped. You're not here for her. You're here for her money. Money? Derek barked out a humorless laugh. We're drowning in debt because you dragged us into your lawsuit against Dad's old company. Don't pretend you're not waiting to gut her accounts. Shut up, Melissa hissed. Oh, I will, Derek said through the door. As soon as you open this. The knob jiggled violently. Ethan tensed, muscles coiled. Then, a sudden crash. Glass shattered. Cold wind and snow blasted through the kitchen window. Derek's arm reached through the broken frame, unlocking it from inside before Ethan could react. Shit! Ethan rushed forward, but Derek was already climbing in, boots crunching on broken glass. He was soaked in snow, eyes bloodshot, a swollen bruise on his cheek, a torn coat hanging off one shoulder. But worst of all was the expression twisting his face, wild, frantic, electrified by fury and panic. He didn't look like a man anymore. He looked like a threat. Mom, Derek said, breath-having, you need to come with me, right now. Sarah backed away. Derek, sweetheart, what happened to your face? He flinched at the word sweetheart, as if tenderness burned him. Doesn't matter, he snapped. What matters is you don't understand the trouble you've caused. I caused? Sarah whispered. Ethan stepped forward. Back away from her. Derek's gaze snapped to him, sharp, hateful. You, he growled. I knew it. You're the leech, the little punk who thinks he hit the jackpot with a lonely old widow. Ethan didn't move. You need to leave, now. Oh, I'm not leaving without her. Derek pointed at Sarah, shaking with rage. She's coming home. She's signing the papers, and this whole pathetic runaway fantasy is over. She's not signing anything, Ethan said. Derek laughed, a horrible broken sound. Kid, you don't get it. This isn't paperwork. This is survival. He pulled something from his pocket, crumpled, damp, but unmistakable, a pink eviction notice. I lost the apartment, he said. They kicked me out this morning. And the debt collectors, they're done playing nice. Melissa's eyes widened. Derek, oh my God. This is your fault, he snarled at her. You're the one who convinced Mom to move into that damn place. You're the one who stopped helping me with rent. You're the one who... Stop blaming everyone but yourself, Melissa shouted. I don't have the luxury of self-reflection, Derek roared back. I have men looking for me right now. Sarah gasped. What men? Derek's eyes flicked toward the window, fear breaking through the alcohol and rage. You don't want to know. Ethan stepped closer to Sarah. He's dangerous. We need to go. Derek lunged forward. Don't you touch her! Ethan shoved him back. Derek slipped on the wet floor, crashed into the counter, sending the lantern skittering dangerously close to the edge. Stop, Sarah cried. But Derek stumbled up again, relentless. You ruined everything, he screamed at Ethan. I had a plan. Melissa had a plan. Mom was going to sign the damn competency papers. And then you showed up and blew it all to hell. Sarah's heart cracked. Competency papers. He had known. He had wanted it. Derek, she whispered, voice trembling, you would take away my freedom? He froze. Something ugly and vulnerable flickered across his face. No, he said quietly. No, Mom, it wasn't like that. We just needed. He swallowed hard. We just needed help. Help? Sarah whispered, lock me away? It's not locking you away, he insisted. It's controlling the damage. Melissa shut her eyes in shame. Ethan stepped in front of Sarah again. She's not signing anything. She's staying with me. Derek snapped. He lunged again, faster, angrier, and this time he shoved Ethan hard enough to send him crashing into the table. Stop it, Sarah cried, but Derek didn't stop. He grabbed Sarah's wrist, too tight, too familiar. The same grip Thomas used. Sarah's vision went white with terror. Mom, Derek growled, I said you're coming with me. Let her go, Ethan shouted, scrambling to his feet. Derek turned, and finally Sarah saw it. The same darkness in his eyes that once lived in Thomas. It lived on in her son. Because she hadn't saved him. She hadn't saved any of them. And now it was too late. Derek, she whispered, voice breaking, you're hurting me. Her words landed like a bullet. Derek froze, his grip loosened, just enough for Ethan to yank Sarah away and push her behind him. Derek's face twisted. Shame, fury, despair collapsing into a single violent storm. Then he whispered something so quiet only Sarah heard it. I didn't mean for him to die. Sarah's breath vanished. Ethan stiffened. Melissa went pale. Derek lifted his trembling hands, staring at them as if seeing them for the first time. I didn't mean to let him fall, he whispered. I swear I didn't. The storm shook the walls, and Sarah realized, with a horror so deep it stole her breath, Melissa hadn't been the only one hiding the truth about Thomas Collins' death. 2 of her children were, and the truth was darker than she had ever imagined. Derek's confession hung in the air like smoke from a gun that no one realized was still warm. Ethan froze mid-step. Melissa went completely still, and Sarah felt her entire world tilt, slow, sinking, irreversible. You? What? Melissa whispered, the words brittle as ice. Derek lowered his hands, palms trembling. I didn't mean it. I swear I didn't mean it. He was yelling. He was coming down the stairs and I... Stop! Melissa's voice cracked like a whip. Don't say it. But the truth had already broken loose, and Derek was past the point of pulling it back. He grabbed me, Derek whispered, eyes distant. He said I was worthless. He said he should have beaten me harder. And I just wanted him to shut up. The farmhouse felt suddenly too small, too fragile to contain the weight of what the Collins family had buried for more than 2 decades. Sarah stepped forward, her knees weak. Derek, sweetheart, what did you do? He looked at her then, really looked at her, and his face collapsed into something terrifyingly childlike. I shoved him, he said. Just once, just enough to make him back off. Melissa let out a choked gasp and covered her mouth. Derek stared at the floor as if expecting blood to appear on the warped boards beneath his feet. He lost his balance, he whispered. He fell. Mom, he fell so fast. I didn't know. God, I didn't know the stairs were so. He stopped, breath hitching. Then, softer. Broken. I thought he'd get up. Ethan swallowed hard. Melissa turned away, shoulders shaking, and Sarah pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Because she remembered the sound. She remembered it too clearly. His body hitting each step on the way down, the way the house shook with the impact. The sound had been seared into her bones. No, she whispered. No. Oh, God. Her voice cracked. You were a child, Derek. You were a child trying to survive him. But Derek shook his head violently. I killed him. No, Sarah repeated. Thomas killed himself long before that night. He broke every one of us. You were just the last one standing in his way. The storm howled outside as if agreeing. Melissa suddenly stepped toward Derek, fury dissolving into something stripped raw. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered. Why did you let me think it was my fault all these years? Derek blinked, confused. Your fault? Melissa, no. You didn't. You don't remember? She snapped, tears streaking her face. Mom was screaming. He was coming after her. I tried to stop him. Derek shook his head. No, I was there. I was the one. I grabbed his arm, Melissa insisted. I tried to pull him back. I slipped. He slipped. I thought... Her voice broke. I thought I pushed him. For a moment, the only sound was the wind punching against the windows. Ethan looked between them, 2 adults swallowed by the ghosts of who they were as children. You both thought you killed him, he said quietly. Melissa wiped her face with shaking hands. All these years, I carried that alone. So did I, Derek whispered. They stared at each other, 2 siblings bound not by love but by trauma, guilt, survival, and silence. Then, slowly, painfully, Melissa's gaze drifted to their mother. Did you know? She asked. All these years, Mom, did you know one of us caused it? Is that why you never spoke? Sarah closed her eyes. When she opened them, tears spilled freely. I knew you were both lying, she said, voice breaking. But I didn't know which of you or how. Why didn't you tell us you knew? Melissa demanded. Because I thought your silence was the only way you survived that house, Sarah said. I thought if I forced the truth out, you would both crumble. We crumbled anyway, Melissa said. Yes, Sarah whispered. And that's my fault too. For the first time, Sarah didn't defend herself, didn't pretend, didn't hide behind excuses. I wasn't a mother, she said. Not the way you needed. I didn't protect you. I didn't save you. I let him turn you into versions of himself. Derek bowed his head. Melissa's knees buckled as she leaned against the wall. Ethan placed a steadying hand on Sarah's shoulder. And in the dim lantern light, the Collins family finally saw itself for what it truly was. A legacy of violence. A lineage of wounds no one tended. A house built on trauma, guilt, and silence. But the moment shattered when Derek's gaze snapped to the window. 2 headlights glowed through the storm. Low, slow, approaching. Oh no, Derek whispered. They followed me. Melissa jerked toward him. Who? Who followed you? Derek swallowed, panic returning full force. The collectors, he said. They want their money, and they know Mom's the only way I have any. The car door slammed outside. Footsteps crunched through the snow. 3, maybe 4 men. Ethan moved instantly, grabbing Sarah's arm. We need to go. Now. But Derek stepped in front of the door, shaking his head. No. If they see Mom, everything's over. Derek, Sarah breathed. What did you do? How much do you owe? His silence was answer enough. The footsteps reached the porch. A knuckle rapped the door, slow, mocking. Ethan whispered, Everybody stay quiet. Sarah's heart pounded so loudly she was certain the men outside could hear it. Then a voice, raspy, amused, called through the storm. Derek Collins, we know you're in there. Melissa's hand flew to her mouth. Another voice joined the first. Bring out the old lady. We just want to talk to her. Sarah's blood ran cold because she realized something horrifying. They didn't come for Derek. They came for her. Derek's confession hung in the air like smoke from a gun that no one realized was still warm. Ethan froze mid-step. Melissa went completely still, and Sarah felt her entire world tilt, slow, sinking, irreversible. You? What? Melissa whispered, the words brittle as ice. Derek lowered his hands, palms trembling. I didn't mean it. I swear I didn't mean it. He was yelling. He was coming down the stairs, and Stop! Melissa's voice cracked like a whip. Don't say it. But the truth had already broken loose, and Derek was past the point of pulling it back. He grabbed me, Derek whispered, eyes distant. He said I was worthless. He said he should have beaten me harder. And I just wanted him to shut up. The farmhouse felt suddenly too small, too fragile to contain the weight of what the Collins family had buried for more than 2 decades. Sarah stepped forward, her knees weak. Derek, sweetheart, what did you do? He looked at her then, really looked at her, and his face collapsed into something terrifyingly childlike. I shoved him, he said, just once, just enough to make him back off. Melissa let out a choked gasp and covered her mouth. Derek stared at the floor as if expecting blood to appear on the warped boards beneath his feet. He lost his balance, he whispered. He fell. Mom, he fell so fast. I didn't know. God, I didn't know the stairs were so. He stopped, breath hitching. Then, softer, broken. I thought he'd get up. Ethan swallowed hard. Melissa turned away, shoulders shaking, and Sarah pressed a trembling hand to her mouth because she remembered the sound. She remembered it too clearly. His body hitting each step on the way down. That sickening rhythm. The way the house shuddered with each impact. The sound had been seared into her bones. No, she whispered. No, oh God, her voice cracked. You were a child, Derek. You were a child trying to survive him. But Derek shook his head violently. I killed him. No, Sarah repeated, more fiercely now. Thomas killed himself long before that night. He broke every one of us. You were just the last one standing in his way. The storm outside howled like a creature awakened. Melissa suddenly stepped toward Derek, fury dissolving into something fragile and raw. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered. Why did you let me think it was my fault all these years? Derek blinked. Your fault? Melissa, no. You didn't. You don't remember? She snapped, tears burning her cheeks. Mom was screaming. He was coming after her. I tried to stop him. Derek shook his head. No, I was there. I was the one. I grabbed his arm, Melissa insisted. I tried to pull him back. I slipped. He slipped. I thought, her voice broke. I thought I pushed him. For a moment, the only sound was the wind punching against the windows. Ethan stared at them. 2 adults still trapped in the ruins of their childhood. You both thought you killed him, he said softly. Melissa wiped her face with shaking fingers. All these years, I carried that alone. So did I, Derek whispered. Their eyes met, not with hatred this time, but with the grief of 2 people who had suffered the same wound and never realized it. Then, slowly, painfully, Melissa looked at their mother. Did you know? She asked. Mom, did you know one of us caused it? Is that why you never spoke? Sarah closed her eyes. When she opened them, tears spilled freely. I knew you were both lying, she said, voice trembling. But I didn't know which of you or how. Why didn't you tell us you knew? Melissa asked. Because your silence was the only thing keeping you both alive, Sarah whispered. I thought forcing the truth out would shatter you. We shattered anyway, Melissa replied. Yes, Sarah whispered. And that's my fault. The lantern flickered weakly, the basement barely holding their confessions. I wasn't a mother, Sarah said quietly. Not the one you deserved. I didn't protect you. I let him poison every part of our lives, and I let that poison grow inside both of you. Derek bowed his head. Melissa's shoulders collapsed inward. Decades of truth pressed them all into that small, cold basement. And then, a knock above them, hard, authoritative. The presence snapped back like a trap. Derek Collins, a voice called through the storm, rough and taunting. We know you're in there. Melissa's breath hitched. They weren't done. Not even close. Another voice joined the first. Bring out the old lady. We just want to talk to her. Sarah's blood went cold. The men weren't here for Derek. They were here for her. Ethan grabbed her arm. We need to move, now. But Derek stumbled backward, shaking his head. No, no, they can't see her. If they see her, if they realize who she is. Who she is? Melissa snapped. She's our mother. Why do they want her? Derek swallowed hard. I may have told them something. Something about Dad's settlement, about the life insurance, about how Mom still had money, more money than they'd ever see. Melissa stared at him, stunned. You sold her out, she whispered. No, Derek insisted, tears streaking down his face. I didn't mean to. I was scared. I didn't think they'd come after her. They always come after the vulnerable, Ethan said coldly. The footsteps above moved toward the basement door. Slow, certain, closing in. Sarah looked at her children, broken, terrified, guilty, hers. She looked at Ethan, steady, loyal, hers. Then she looked up the stairs where danger waited, violent, cold, inevitable. And one truth struck her with devastating clarity. If she didn't make a choice right now, someone she loved was going to die. The basement door creaked. A shadow appeared beneath the frame. Ethan stepped in front of her, but Sarah grabbed his arm. No, she whispered. Let me go first. Because for the first time in her life, Sarah Collins wasn't running away. She was walking toward the truth. They emerged from the basement like survivors crawling out of a collapsed mine, slow, shaken, bracing for the world to fall on them again. The farmhouse was still. Too still. The storm had quieted, leaving a heavy, eerie silence that made every floorboard groan feel like a warning. Ethan scanned the windows, muscles tight, breath sharp. They'll be back, he said. They're not giving up after coming this far. Melissa rubbed her arms, shivering. Then we need to leave before they realize the police never came. Derek sat on the floor, back against the wall, face in his hands. I can't outrun them, he whispered. They know everything about me. Where I go, who I talk to. They always find me. Sarah's heart clenched. He looked like a boy again, scared, lost, drowning in a life shaped by a father none of them escaped. We're not leaving you, she said gently. Melissa rounded on her, fire flashing through her tears. Mom, this isn't our responsibility. Derek made his mistakes. He is my son, Sarah cut in, voice steady. My child, the one I failed to protect. Derek shook his head miserably. You didn't fail, Mom. I couldn't get away from him, from what he did to us. His voice cracked on the last word. He never left, Derek whispered. Even after he died, he never left. Sarah knelt and wrapped her arms around him. No, she whispered, but we're leaving him now. For the first time, Derek let himself lean into the comfort. Ethan gathered what he could, blankets, a flashlight, a rusted shovel, a jug of water. We need to move now, he said. If we stay here, those men will come back with more. Melissa scoffed, pacing. And go where? We have no plan, no money, and your car is? Ethan stepped outside for only a moment before slamming the door in frustration. They cut the fuel line. Melissa sank into a chair, defeated. Fantastic. So we're stranded. Derek slumped further. They're going to kill me, and they'll take you with me. No, Ethan snapped, stepping toward him. Not if we keep moving. Melissa folded her arms. There it is again. We. You're not part of this family. Ethan stiffened. Before he could answer, Sarah did. Yes, she said, quiet but unshakable. He is. The words landed like snowfall, soft but heavy enough to change everything. Melissa blinked. Mom, he stayed, Sarah said simply, when no one else did. Derek looked at the floor, shame shadowing his features. Sarah stood straighter. He chose me, not my money, not my silence, me. Ethan swallowed hard, looking away. Melissa stared at her mother like seeing a stranger. So what now? You choose him over us? I choose truth, Sarah whispered, and myself. Melissa's breath broke. She shook her head, stepping away before her emotions could split open. Ethan's voice cut through the rising tension. We move through the woods, take the back trails to the quarry. No cars, no roads. If they come back, they won't see us. Melissa snapped. A quarry? Seriously? Do you have a better idea? Her jaw clenched. She said nothing more, and so they walked. The snow was thick, but the trees shielded them from the worst of the cold. Their breaths puffed through the air like ghosts following them. Derek stumbled often. Ethan caught him every time. Melissa walked ahead, glancing back every few seconds, acting angry but listening for danger more carefully than any of them. Sarah stayed by Ethan's side. Are you scared? She whispered. Yes, he whispered back, but I'd rather be scared with you than safe anywhere else. Something warm bloomed painfully in her chest, unexpected, unwelcome, unstoppable. But the moment shattered when they reached the clearing. Footprints, fresh, deep, leading straight to the quarry entrance. Melissa froze. They're already here. Derek stumbled backward. No, 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 no. We're dead. We're all dead. Ethan stepped closer to the prints, jaw tightening. No, not dead. He pointed. These prints aren't searching. They're expecting. Sarah felt her pulse freeze. Expecting what? Melissa asked. Ethan turned toward Sarah slowly, fear and understanding dawning at the same time. They're not hunting Derek, he said. He looked at Melissa. Not hunting you. Then he held Sarah's gaze. They're hunting a secret. Sarah swallowed. Hard. Her throat tightened around a truth she'd hoped would stay buried forever. Mom, Melissa murmured, voice trembling, what did Dad really leave behind? Sarah closed her eyes. She saw the past like a film reel. Thomas's locked office, the metal box he hid beneath the floorboard, the documents he threatened people with, the names he swore would burn with him, the insurance policy that never made sense, the way men used to come to the house at night. When she opened her eyes, they glistened with truth. I didn't just inherit his money, she whispered. Ethan stepped closer. Then what? Sarah hesitated. Snow drifted softly around them, quieting the world. Finally, she spoke. One word. A word heavy enough to fracture whatever hope they had left. Evidence. They emerged from the basement like survivors crawling out of a collapsed mine, slow, shaken, bracing for the world to fall on them again. The farmhouse was still. Too still. The storm had quieted, leaving a heavy, eerie silence that made every floorboard groan feel like a warning. Ethan scanned the windows, muscles tight, breath sharp. They'll be back, he said. They're not giving up after coming this far. Melissa rubbed her arms, shivering. Then we need to leave before they realize the police never came. Derek sat on the floor, back against the wall, face in his hands. I can't outrun them, he whispered. They know everything about me, where I go, who I talk to. They always find me. Sarah's heart clenched. Her son looked like the frightened child she once carried from room to room when Thomas's rage thundered through the house. We're not leaving you, she said softly. Melissa turned on her. Mom, this isn't our responsibility. He is my son, Sarah said, her voice steady, unyielding. The child I failed to save. Derek's shoulders shook. You didn't fail, Mom. I didn't know how to stop losing. Before Melissa could argue, Ethan stepped back inside, shoving the door closed. They slashed the fuel line, he said. Car's dead. Melissa let out a hollow laugh. So what now? We die here? No, Ethan said sharply. We move. On foot. And so they did, through the woods, the wind howling, the trees bowing under the storm's dying breath. Derek stumbled. Melissa cursed under hers. Ethan steadied Sarah more than once. Until they reached the clearing, footprints in the snow, fresh, deep. Ethan crouched, studying them. They're expecting you to hide, he murmured. Expecting what? Melissa asked. Ethan looked at Sarah, not with confusion, with realization. They're not hunting a family, Ethan said softly. They're hunting a secret. Sarah felt something inside her collapse, but she spoke the truth anyway. I didn't just inherit his money. A breath, heavy, shaking. I inherited evidence. It hung in the air like a blade. Evidence of what? Melissa demanded. Fraud, laundering, deals with men far more dangerous than your father. Derek's face went bloodless. And they think you still have it? I hid it, Sarah whispered. I kept it to protect you. Melissa's voice cracked. From who? But the answer arrived before Sarah could give it. Well, well, a voice drawled from the quarry mouth. Looks like the Collins family is finally ready to talk. Snow blew aside like a curtain, revealing 3 men. The leader stepped forward, smiling like a wolf in a church pew. You've had us running circles all morning, Mrs. Collins. Impressive, considering your age. Ethan stepped in front of her. The leader chuckled. That your guard dog? Cute. Step aside. He didn't. Step aside. Still, Ethan stayed rooted, and then recognition flickered in the leader's eyes. Oh, I know you, he said slowly. Reyes' boy, the runner, the one who owes us more than his daddy ever paid. Sarah felt the ground tilt beneath her. Ethan, she whispered, is that true? He didn't answer, didn't look at her, just stayed between her and the men. So here's the deal, the leader said brightly. Bring us the lockbox. We all walk away. Sarah shook her head. It's hidden, far from here. Then you're taking us to it. No, Ethan growled. The leader's smile vanished. You don't get a say, kid. He lifted a hand. Grab him. One of the men surged forward, fast, and caught Ethan by the collar. Ethan fought back, elbowing ribs, kicking snow, but he was outnumbered, overpowered. A punch, another. Blood hit the snow. Stop! Sarah screamed. Melissa grabbed her before she could run toward him. The leader crouched beside Ethan, voice silky. You always were a runner, but this? He gestured toward Sarah. This is pathetic. Ethan spat blood at his boots. I'm not running. The leader stood, brushing off his coat. Bring the mother. A large man stepped toward Sarah, and Derek, trembling pale, stepped into his path. No, take me instead. The leader laughed. You're worth less than the snow under my boots. Humiliation broke something small and fragile in Derek's face. Then Melissa stepped forward, voice steady, eyes blazing. You touch her, she whispered, and I swear I'll bury every one of you with what she has. The leader's smile faltered. Ah, so the daughter knew how to draw blood without touching flesh. He leaned close to her. Then pray we never see what's in that box. He snapped his fingers. Bring her? The larger man lunged. Ethan broke free with a snarl, tackling the man sideways, the two crashing into the snow in a violent spray. A crack echoed? A bone? Ice? No one knew. Chaos detonated. Sarah screamed. Melissa shouted Ethan's name. Derek staggered back, slipping in the snow. Enough, the leader whispered. He pulled out a gun and pointed it directly at Sarah. She froze. Time froze. The world narrowed to the cold metal staring her down. Ethan pushed himself up, blood dripping from a cut above his brow. No, he choked out. Stop! The leader tilted the gun, expression almost bored. Mrs. Collins, he said softly, you're going to tell me exactly where that evidence is. Sarah's lips parted, but the answer rising in her throat was not the one anyone expected. Snow buried Ethan's body inch by inch, as if the storm itself were trying to claim him before the men could. His vision blurred at the edges, white, then red, then nothing but the faint outline of trees shaking under winter's breath. But as darkness crawled in, he held on to the last thing he saw, Sarah. Not running from him. Running because of him. Because he bought her seconds. Because he refused to let her die for secrets she never asked to inherit. He tried to lift his head again, but the weight of pain dragged him down. Footsteps crunched closer. Heavy, deliberate, hunting. Kid's still alive, one of the men muttered. A second voice answered, amused, barely. Ethan tried to push himself up, a slow, trembling movement, but a boot pressed down between his shoulder blades, shoving him back into the snow. Stay down, the man growled. Ethan's breath fogged weakly beneath him. His side burned. His fingers twitching in the snow were the only proof he hadn't slipped away completely. The leader crouched beside him, gun dangling loosely from his hand. You should have stayed out of this, he said. Could have walked away. No one would have blamed you. Ethan forced a laugh, a broken, wet sound. No, he rasped. I don't walk away. Not anymore. Then you die here. The leader pressed the cold muzzle of the gun to Ethan's neck. Ethan didn't move, didn't beg, didn't flinch. He closed his eyes and whispered something the man couldn't hear. Sarah, run. Before the trigger could be pulled, a roar shook the clearing. Not thunder, not wind. An engine. Headlights blazed through the trees, blinding, violent, sudden. The men spun toward the light. The leader swore. Who the hell? A truck barreled into the clearing, tires spraying snow. It skidded sideways, slid across the ice, and slammed into one of the men, sending him flying into a drift. The leader dove aside. The second man lunged for cover. The truck skidded to a halt. Its door flew open. A figure jumped out. Not Sarah. Not Melissa. Ethan's mother. Her hair wild. Her face streaked with tears. Hands shaking, but steady enough to hold the metal baseball bat she'd grabbed from the passenger seat. Get away from my son, she screamed. The leader turned his gun toward her. Ethan used the last strength in his body to grab the man's leg, dragging with everything he had left. The leader stumbled, aim derailed, a shot fired into the sky. Ethan's mother swung the bat. It connected with the man's wrist. A sickening crack. The gun flew into the snow. The leader screamed, clutching his wrist. The second man scrambled, reaching for the weapon, but headlights blazed again behind them. Another car? No, Melissa, dragging Sarah into the driver's seat of Derek's abandoned sedan. Melissa floored the gas. The sedan fishtailed across the snow, straight toward the second man. He dove out of the way at the last second, rolling through the ice, cursing. Mom! Melissa screamed from the window. Grab Ethan! Sarah, trembling with terror and grief and adrenaline, stumbled out into the clearing. Ethan's mother was already dragging her unconscious son toward the car. He's bleeding out, she gasped. We need to move. We need a hospital. We need. A shot rang out. They all froze. The leader, wrist shattered, face contorted in agony, had retrieved a second gun from inside his coat. He was aiming directly at Sarah. Again. Drop him, the leader snarled. Or the old woman dies. I swear to God, this time I won't miss. Sarah didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't run. She stepped forward, placing herself between Ethan and the gun. Shoot me, she whispered. Go on, shoot me, because if you don't kill me right now, I will destroy everything you're trying to protect. The leader's hand shook, not from cold, from something he didn't expect to feel, fear. Last chance, Sarah said, voice steady, eyes burning. You walk away, or I burn every name in that lockbox, including yours. He hesitated. Just 1 second, one fatal second. Ethan's mother swung the bat again. It collided with the leader's temple. He crumpled into the snow, unmoving. The second man bolted into the trees, disappearing into the storm. Silence crashed down like an avalanche. Melissa screamed, Get in! Sarah and Ethan's mother heaved Ethan's limp body into the back seat. Sarah climbed in beside him, holding his head in her lap, her hands shaking so violently she could barely brush snow from his hair. Stay with me, she whispered desperately. Please, Ethan, stay with me. He didn't answer. His breath fluttered once, weak, fading. The car tore away from the clearing, tires spinning, engine roaring. The storm swallowed the quarry behind them. Sarah's tears fell onto Ethan's face, warm against his freezing skin. Please, she whispered again, voice cracking. Don't leave me. Not you. Not now. Ethan's eyelids fluttered, barely, just enough for him to squeeze her fingers, the smallest pressure, but real. And then he went still again. Sarah held him tighter. Melissa's voice trembled from the front seat. Where do we go? Ethan's mother answered, her voice shaking with fear and fire. Somewhere they can't find us. But Sarah's voice, quiet, trembling, fierce, cut through the cold. No. They turned toward her. We're not running anymore, she whispered. Melissa blinked. Mom? Sarah looked at Ethan, broken, bleeding, brave Ethan, and felt something inside her ignite. A decision. A war cry. A promise. We finish this, she said. We end them. Her voice was no longer the voice of a scared woman. It was the voice of someone who had been hunted long enough. Ethan's mother stared at her in shock, and Melissa, eyes red, cheeks streaked, nodded slowly. Then tell us, she whispered. Where is the evidence? Snow drifted around the moving car. Sarah lifted her head and spoke the truth she had buried for 23 years. It's hidden in the one place Thomas swore he'd never go. She turned her gaze toward the storm-dark horizon. His father's house. Ethan didn't feel the cold anymore. He didn't feel the blood soaking into the snow, or the throbbing wound in his side, or the sting of frostbite beginning around his fingers. Pain had turned into something distant, a dull, underwater pounding that no longer belonged to him. But the terror was real, not for himself, for her. He tried to lift his head. His vision swam, white, red, black. He tried again. Sarah? It came out as a broken breath. But she was gone. Taken by the storm. Taken by fear. Taken by the truth he still didn't understand. He collapsed again, snow cushioning his fall like a grave built gently. In the forest, Sarah and Melissa pushed through the thick trees, their steps uneven and frantic. Branches clawed at their coats. Snow weighed down their hair. Their breaths came out as harsh puffs, disappearing as fast as they formed. But Sarah didn't feel her legs. She didn't feel the cold. She didn't feel her lungs burning. She only felt the emptiness where Ethan should have been. Mom, Melissa panted, gripping her arm. We have to keep going. Sarah stumbled. Melissa, Ethan? He's buying us time, Melissa said, her voice tight with grief. Don't waste it, please. He might be dying. Melissa stopped. Her eyes softened and broke. I know, she whispered. I know, Mom, but if they catch you, his death means nothing. Sarah's breath hitched. It was the same thing Melissa had told her minutes earlier. Don't make me bury you too. So Sarah forced her legs forward, forced her heart to beat, forced herself to survive because two young men, Derek first, then Ethan, had thrown their bodies in front of bullets for her. She couldn't let their sacrifices die in the snow. Not again. At the quarry's edge, the thugs fanned out through the trees, their boot prints spreading like cracks in the snow. Search the ridge! One shouted. They couldn't have gotten far. The leader didn't join them. He had a more valuable hostage. He knelt beside Ethan's failing body, watching, studying, probing for weakness, and found something even better, loyalty, the knife that always cuts the deepest. She helped him. The leader's words spilled like poison into the freezing air. She signed the papers, he said. She helped launder the money. She hid the transfers. Without her, Thomas Collins couldn't have run half his operations. Ethan's pulse thrashed beneath his skin. He forced the word out again. Liar. Think about it, the leader said, leaning closer. 20 years ago, she lived beside him, slept beside him, benefited from every dollar. You think she didn't know? You think she didn't help him clean up? Ethan's jaw clenched so hard he tasted metal. She loved her kids, he rasped. She would never. The leader laughed, a hollow, amused sound. Love? He leaned in, voice dropping to a razor whisper. You think love makes people innocent? He straightened, brushing snow from his coat. She's smarter than you think, more dangerous too. She's not like him, Ethan whispered. Oh, she's worse, the leader said. He was violent, predictable. But her? She's clever. She hid that evidence for over 20 years. She's not running from us, kid. She's running from what she did. Ethan's chest tightened, not with fear, with fury. If you, he growled, grabbing the man's boot again, touch her, I'll kill you. The leader smirked. I'm counting on it. He kicked Ethan's hand away and walked into the trees, leaving Ethan bleeding, leaving him doubting, leaving him shattered between truth and lies. Back in the woods, Sarah slowed, her breath hitching. She touched a tree trunk for balance. Melissa stopped instantly. Mom? Sarah closed her eyes. Red snow flashed behind her eyelids. Ethan falling. Ethan bleeding. Ethan whispering her name. It wasn't just fear holding her in place. It was something else, something monstrous, something she had buried for 23 years. Mom? Melissa whispered, voice trembling. What did Dad make you do? Sarah opened her eyes. They glistened with unshed tears, and something darker. Melissa, her voice cracked. There are things you don't know, things I never wanted you to know. Melissa stepped back slightly. Fear flickered across her face. Like what? Sarah swallowed. Snow fell heavier. Even the forest seemed to lean in to listen. The evidence, Sarah whispered, isn't the only thing I hid that night. Melissa's blood ran cold. What else? Sarah looked toward the horizon where Thomas Collins' father's cabin waited, dark, silent, hungry with memories. I didn't just witness your father's last moments, she said. Her breath trembled. I changed them. Meanwhile, Ethan, he lay in a widening pool of blood, breath shallow, but his fingers clawed forward, slow, shaking, desperate to move, desperate to reach her, desperate to prove the leader wrong. Sarah wasn't like Thomas. She couldn't be. He had seen her fear, her softness, her courage. He had held her hands when they trembled. He had heard her voice when she whispered truths no one else believed. He had watched her choose freedom again and again, even when everything tried to cage her. If she had helped Thomas, if she had been part of the crimes, if she had hidden more than evidence, he would know. He would know. Sarah, he whispered again, dragging himself through the snow. Every breath seared his lungs. Every inch burned. But he kept moving, because the leader's final words gnawed at him like teeth. She's not who you think she is. And worse, what if that was true? At the cabin, it appeared at last between the trees, a dark silhouette perched on a white hill, its windows empty like the eyes of something long dead. Melissa stopped. Sarah stopped beside her. Neither moved, neither breathed, because the house wasn't just a place. It was a wound, a history, a prison, a grave. Mom, Melissa whispered, whatever you're hiding, you need to tell me before we go in. Sarah's breath faltered. I will, she said, but her voice, quiet, trembling, held something Melissa had never heard before. Guilt. Real guilt. The kind that didn't come from being blamed. The kind that came from deserving it. Sarah pressed her hand against her heart and whispered the truth that would fracture everything. Melissa, your father didn't fall down those stairs. Melissa's eyes widened. Snow fell silent around them. Then how did he die? She choked out. Sarah looked at her daughter and whispered, I pushed him. Sarah felt the lockbox slipping in her trembling hands. Not falling, just shifting, just enough for the weight of it to remind her she wasn't holding metal. She was holding 23 years of buried truth. Ethan stood in the doorway like an accusation carved out of snow and blood. His wound had soaked through his shirt. His breathing was ragged, far worse than he was trying to hide. But his eyes were the part that hurt. They were no longer soft, no longer certain, no longer hers. They were searching her face the way a drowning man searches the surface of water, hoping for air, bracing for betrayal. Ethan, she whispered, stepping toward him. He flinched, the smallest movement, the kind that cracked something inside her ribcage. Melissa noticed. She moved instinctively between them. What happened? She demanded. Who told you she was part of it? Sarah knew the answer before he spoke. The leader, Ethan said. His voice broke halfway through. He said your mother, he said you signed papers, helped Thomas with his deals, that you weren't innocent. Sarah's heart dropped like a stone into a frozen lake. Melissa bristled. You believe him? Men who torture, hunt, shoot people, they tell you one lie and you fall for it? Ethan shook his head weakly. No, I don't want to believe him, but I need to hear it from her. His voice faltered. Sarah, please. Sarah set the lockbox gently on the desk. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She turned toward him fully, toward his wound, toward his trembling, toward the fear in his eyes that wasn't fear for her anymore. It was fear of her. That hurt more than any bruise Thomas ever gave her. Ethan, she said softly, I never helped Thomas hurt anyone. Not willingly. Ethan's brows pulled together. Willingly? He echoed. And Sarah knew. This was the moment she had feared since the night her husband's body broke itself down the staircase. She swallowed. Her voice was barely a breath. Thomas forged my name on everything. Ethan blinked, confused, disbelieving, hopeful, terrified. Melissa exhaled shakily. Oh my God. Sarah kept going, because stopping now would turn every truth into a lie. He controlled everything. My bank account, my ID, my car, my phone. I didn't even know half of what he was doing until the night I found the lockbox. He used my signature because he knew if he ever went down, I'd go with him. Ethan stared at her, his breathing uneven. But the leader, he said you benefited. That you. I slept next to a monster, Sarah whispered. That was the only thing I benefited from. Fear, control, bruises I pretended were clumsiness, children who learned to hide instead of speak. Her voice cracked, and a house full of secrets I was trapped inside. Ethan's jaw trembled, but he wasn't convinced. Not yet. So you didn't know? He asked. You didn't sign anything? You never helped him? Sarah stepped closer. No, but I didn't stop him either. Silence swallowed the room. Melissa stiffened. Mom? It's the truth, Sarah whispered. I was too scared to leave, too scared to fight, too scared to protect you or Derek or myself. I told myself survival was enough, that staying quiet was safer than trying to expose him. Her voice broke entirely. And if that makes me guilty, then yes, Ethan, I'm guilty. Ethan's breath faltered. Snow tapped softly against the broken window, like fingers urging him to decide whether to stay or run. Why didn't you tell me? He whispered. Because you would look at me exactly like you're looking at me now, Sarah said. And I couldn't bear that. He closed his eyes. A tear slid down his cheek, from pain or grief or betrayal or love. She couldn't tell. When he opened them again, the conflict inside him was a storm. I don't know what to believe, he whispered. I want to believe you. God, Sarah, I want to believe you. Then believe me, she begged. I didn't help him. I survived him. Ethan swayed on his feet. Melissa grabbed his arm before he fell. You're losing too much blood, she said. Sit down. But Ethan shook her off gently, eyes locked on Sarah's. I came here to save you, he said, but now I don't even know who I'm saving. Sarah felt her heart fracture. Then Ethan whispered, voice breaking, tell me one thing, please, and be honest. Anything, Sarah breathed. When your husband fell, he swallowed hard. Did you really push him? Melissa inhaled sharply. Sarah went still, completely still. For a long moment, the only sound was Ethan's weak, shallow breathing. Sarah closed her eyes, saw the staircase, saw Thomas's rage, saw her children crying, saw her hands trembling, terrified, desperate, not to kill, but to live. She opened her eyes and whispered the truth, yes. Ethan's face shattered. Sarah stepped toward him, but he took a single step back, the smallest step, just enough to break her entirely. He whispered her name once, Sarah, full of pain and love and loss, and collapsed. His body hit the floor with a thud that echoed like a fatal punctuation. Melissa screamed. Ethan! Sarah fell to her knees beside him, sobbing. But outside the cabin, snow crunched, bootsteps, many, coming closer. They had been found again, and this time, there would be no more running. The doorknob turned slowly, deliberately, like someone savoring the moment before breaking into a grave. Sarah's breath hitched. Melissa tightened her grip on her mother's arm. Ethan pushed himself upright by sheer will, body shaking, blood dripping onto the floor. He stood as though he could still protect them, though he could barely stay conscious. The lockbox felt like ice in Sarah's hands. A hinge clicked. Then, the door swung open. Snowlight flooded the study. And the leader stepped inside, not rushing, not shouting, smiling. His gun rested casually at his side, like this wasn't a chase through hell, but a polite visit. "Well," he murmured, eyes sliding over the room, over the trapdoor, over Melissa and Sarah, stopping last on Ethan. "You just don't die, do you?" Ethan's jaw clenched. "Not until you're buried," he rasped. The leader barked a quiet laugh. "No, you'll die long before I do." Melissa moved subtly, stepping in front of Sarah, but the leader saw it. "Sweet," he said, "but pointless." He pointed the gun at Melissa's chest. Sarah made a sound, small, choked, raw. "No," she whispered. "Please, please don't hurt her." The leader turned to Sarah. "There you are," he said softly, "the bargaining piece." His eyes flicked to the lockbox in her hands. "And there it is, the only thing keeping you breathing." Ethan staggered a step forward. "Kill her," he rasped, "and the evidence goes nowhere." The leader smiled wider. "You think I need her alive to get it?" He raised the gun toward Sarah and froze, because Sarah stepped forward, not away from the gun, into it. The barrel pressed against her sternum. Melissa gasped. Ethan's heart nearly stopped, but Sarah's voice, when she spoke, was calm, terrifyingly calm. "You kill me," she said softly, "and the only person who knows where the other files are dies with me." The leader blinked. A crack appeared in his confidence. "Other files?" Sarah didn't blink. "I hid more than one lockbox." Ethan stared at her. Melissa stared at her. The leader stared longest. Sarah continued, voice growing steadier with every word. "You think Thomas put everything in one place? You think men like him trust only one insurance policy?" She shook her head. "He had backups, documents he didn't want even you to find." The leader's jaw tightened. "You're bluffing." "Shoot me," Sarah said, stepping closer, forcing the gun back into his hand, "and find out." A muscle twitched in his cheek. Ethan recognized that twitch. He had seen it once before, right before the leader hesitated to shoot him. The leader was not afraid of violence, but he was afraid of losing control. He lowered the gun 1 inch, then 2. "All right," he said. "If you want to trade." He reached for the lockbox. "Give it to me." Sarah stepped back. "No." His eyes hardened. "You're stalling." "No," Sarah whispered. "I'm warning you." He took another step forward, and Ethan moved. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't strong. It wasn't even fully conscious. But Ethan Reyes threw himself between Sarah and the leader again, body swaying, arms trembling, blood dripping. "Touch her," he growled, "and you'll never find the files." The leader scoffed. "You're dying on your feet. Get out of my way." Ethan didn't move. Melissa stepped beside him, tall, proud, furious. "You kill her," Melissa said, "and every copy burns with her. She'll take the whole operation down just to spite you." Sarah stared at her daughter, stunned. Melissa didn't look back. The leader's gaze darted between them. 3 broken people, 3 truths he couldn't quite read. The storm outside roared against the cabin walls, wind howling like something trying to warn him or drown him. He clicked the safety off. "That's enough," he said. "Move." Sarah shook her head. "No." And then, before anyone could react, a second voice echoed from the doorway. A woman's voice, cold, steady, devastating. She said no. The leader turned sharply. Standing in the hall, covered in snow, holding a shotgun, eyes burning with fury, was Ethan's mother. Her voice was ice and fire combined. "Step away from my son." Snow swallowed Sarah Collins whole. One moment she was standing in the doorway, backlit by the dim, trembling light of the cabin. The next, the blizzard devoured her, pulling her from sight as though the night itself had claimed her. The door slammed shut with a violence that shook dust from the rafters. Silence. A silence so deep it felt like the house itself was holding its breath. Melissa collapsed first. Her knees buckled, and she crumpled beside the doorway, sobs choking out of her in broken, devastated bursts. Her fingers clawed at the wooden floor as if she could dig a path through it, tear it apart, chase after her mother through sheer force of will. "Mom! Mom! Please!" Her wail fractured the cold air. She pounded the floor until her fists bruised, until her cries bled into breathless gasps. Ethan didn't collapse. He crawled. Through agony, through the fog of blood loss, through pain that should have left him unconscious 10 minutes ago. But he dragged himself across the floor anyway, one elbow forward, then the other, fingers clawing grooves in the wood, toward the door, toward Sarah. His vision blurred, doubled, trembled, but he kept moving. "Sarah," he choked out. His voice was gravel, blood, desperation. Sarah, please, don't. Melissa turned toward him, face streaked with tears and fury. This is your fault, she screamed. If you hadn't, if she didn't, if you hadn't come here. But she caught herself. Her hands flew to her mouth. Ethan stopped crawling. The words didn't wound him, not as much as the truth beneath them. He would rather she blame him than lose the woman he had nearly died for. He bowed his head, forehead resting against the cold floor. Take it back, he whispered. Take her back. She shouldn't be out there. She shouldn't. She shouldn't. His voice cracked. Melissa looked at him, and her anger shattered into grief. No, she whispered, voice trembling. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. But Ethan wasn't listening. He was fighting to stay conscious. Blood pooled beneath him, warm and slow. His breath shuddered unevenly, but his eyes stayed fixed on the door. She didn't want you to follow her. The voice came from behind them. Ethan and Melissa both jerked around. In the doorway of the hall stood Ethan's mother, shotgun still in her hands, snow melting on her coat. Her face was pale with shock at the blood, the broken furniture, the open lockbox, but her eyes were steady. She walked toward Ethan, kneeling beside him with trembling hands. Oh God, baby, look at me. Her voice cracked. What did they do to you? Ethan coughed. Mom, Sarah, they took... I know, she whispered, wiping blood from his jaw. I saw them dragging her. I tried to follow. Melissa looked up sharply. Where did they go? Ethan's mother swallowed. Up the ridge, toward the old service road. A car was waiting. Melissa surged to her feet. We have to go. Ethan's mother reached out. Sweetheart, you're no match for them. Melissa snapped. I am not letting my mother walk into death alone. Her voice quaked, shaking with something equal parts terror and rage. She turned to Ethan. You're coming with us. Ethan let out a humorless laugh, nearly choking on it. I can't stand. I don't care, Melissa said. You pointed your body at bullets for her. You are not staying behind. His mother grabbed his face gently, forcing Ethan to meet her eyes. Baby, she whispered, voice trembling with fear and a mother's unbearable resolve. You follow her now, and I'm burying you next to Derek. The name hit the room like a blade. Melissa flinched. Ethan closed his eyes, breath stuttering. His mother pressed a palm to his chest. I know you love her, she whispered. I know. I saw the way you looked at her before you even realized it yourself. Ethan's chest tightened painfully. But love doesn't matter if you're dead. She glanced toward the door Sarah had been dragged through. Your Sarah didn't run to surrender, she said softly. She ran to buy you time. Melissa froze. What do you mean? Ethan's mother lifted the shotgun. She made a trade, she said. And we're going to use that trade. What trade? Melissa demanded. The older woman pointed the barrel toward the open lockbox. She gave him the wrong box. Ethan's eyes flew open. Melissa gasped. What? She whispered. Ethan's mother nodded at the metal container on the desk. That box? That's not the evidence. She met Ethan's stunned, bloodshot eyes. I know because Sarah came to my door months ago. Ethan's heart stuttered. She asked for help, his mother whispered. She gave me the real lockbox. Said if anything ever happened to her or her children, I was to protect it, and to protect you. Ethan's breath broke. She trusted you, Melissa whispered, stunned. Yes, Ethan's mother said, because she knew one day he'd come for it. She gestured toward the door where the leader had dragged Sarah, and now he thinks he has it, which means we have one chance. Melissa lifted her chin. Then we use the real evidence. Ethan's mother nodded sharply. And we tear that man's world apart. Melissa grabbed the blanket from the floor, wrapped it under Ethan's arms, and hauled him upright with a strength born from grief and adrenaline. He cried out, but he didn't fall. Melissa held him steady. You're not dying, she said fiercely. You're helping me save my mother. Ethan's knees buckled. Pain slashed through him. But his voice, weak, raw, still came out. I'll go, anywhere for her. Melissa looked toward the door, toward the storm waiting outside, toward the danger, and whispered, then let's go. Ethan's mother pumped the shotgun. Hope you're ready, she said, because we're going to get her back. And somewhere in the whiteout, dragged through snow by a man who thought he'd finally won, Sarah Collins lifted her head. Her pulse still beat, her mind still worked, her secrets still lived. And her war, the one she never asked for, never wanted, never believed she could survive, was just beginning. The storm swallowed Sarah whole. The snow hit her face in sharp needles, the wind tearing at her coat as the leader dragged her across the clearing like she was nothing more than evidence in human form. But inside her, beneath the fear, beneath the cold, beneath the trembling, something steady lit up. She was not walking to her death. She was walking toward her choice. For the first time in 68 years, the choice was hers. When they reached the car, the leader shoved her into the back seat. The lockbox sat beside her like an accusation. "You're going to tell me everything," he said. "And if you don't, your daughter dies after you." Sarah didn't react. She simply looked out the window. The snow blurred into streaks of white. The storm was roaring, but inside her chest, quiet, for the first time in years. Back at the cabin, Ethan pushed himself upright with a sound that belonged more to an animal than a man. Pain detonated through his ribs. His vision doubled, then tripled, but he kept pushing. Melissa knelt beside him, panic shaking her. "Ethan, you can't go after her. You'll die." His voice broke into a whisper. "She traded herself for us. I'm not letting her die alone." "Ethan, Melissa," he said, gripping her arm with the last of his strength. "She loves you. Don't let her die thinking she failed you." Tears streamed down Melissa's face. She swallowed hard. Then she nodded. "I'm going with you." Ethan shook his head, slow, pained. "No, if we both go, no one survives." "Then what?" "You call the police, every number you can. You give them Dad's evidence. You tell them everything." Melissa froze. "Everything?" Ethan looked directly into her eyes. "The trauma, the violence, the cover-ups, the truth about your father's death, all of it." Melissa's breath hitched. "Ethan, if I do that, I destroy what's left of our family." "Then destroy it," he whispered, "before it destroys you." Melissa's lips trembled. Then she nodded, once, sharply. Ethan exhaled, the last bit of clarity leaving him. Then he stood. Blood dripped down his shirt. He could barely see. But he walked into the storm anyway. The leader's car cut through the blizzard, headlights slicing through white chaos. Sarah watched trees blur past like memories she couldn't hold on to. "You're going to give me those account numbers," he said. "Every one." Sarah rested her head against the cold glass. "No." He reached back and grabbed her chin. "You don't understand your situation." Sarah didn't blink. "No," she said softly. "You don't." His grip tightened. Then a shape appeared in the road. A figure, stumbling, bleeding, frozen. Ethan. The leader cursed and swerved, too late. The car fishtailed, tires screeching on ice. The world spun in violent circles. Snow, trees, headlights, dark. The car slammed into a drift. Sarah's head struck the window. Pain exploded behind her eyes. Then silence. Not quiet, silence. The kind that only comes after something breaks. When she opened her eyes, the leader was slumped forward, unconscious. Blood stained the steering wheel. One of his men groaned outside the car, half buried in snow. Sarah pushed the door open. The storm screamed into her face. "Ethan," she cried. Her voice was shredded by wind. She stumbled through the snow, falling to her knees, then dragging herself up again. Her legs didn't cooperate. Her breath burned. But she moved. She moved because someone had moved toward her first. Finally, she found him. Ethan lay in the snow a few yards away, curled like someone who had accepted the pain and released the fear. His lips were blue. His chest barely rose. "Ethan," Sarah whispered, dropping beside him. Her voice cracked. "Why would you do that? Why would you walk into the road?" His eyes fluttered open. He smiled. Faint. "Ruined. Beautiful. To see you one more time." Sarah shook, tears freezing on her cheeks. "You came for me," she whispered. "Always," he breathed. She lifted his head into her lap. His blood warmed her hands, even as the storm tried to steal the heat. "You're so young," she whispered, voice breaking. "You deserved more life than this." Ethan's eyes softened. "You gave me a life, even if it was short." "No," Sarah sobbed. "I ruined everything. I lied. I hid. I caused. You survived." He whispered, interrupting her. "And you saved me the day you let me see you." Her tears fell onto his face. The wind howled. The trees swayed. The world tilted. "Ethan," she whispered, "stay with me." But his eyes were fading. No, closing. "Sarah," he breathed. "Yes, love?" He smiled, the smallest smile a human heart could hold. "You're finally free." His chest rose once more. Once and never again. Sarah screamed into the storm, a sound born from decades of silence. A sound so full of grief it cracked the cold around her. She held him until her fingers went numb. She held him until lights appeared through the trees. Melissa running, screaming her mother's name. Police cars carving through the night, flashlights cutting through snow. But Sarah didn't let go. She held Ethan as if letting go meant losing her last chance at forgiveness, her last chance at love, her last chance at being the person she might have been if life had been kinder. Later, in the aftermath, in the ambulance she refused to ride in, as officers carried away the unconscious men, as Melissa wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, Sarah whispered one final truth. I walked into the storm, she said, but he was my shelter. And as dawn broke, pale, trembling, indifferent, Sarah Collins watched the world go on with a heart that would never again be whole. But for the first time in her life, it beat on its own terms.